That's what I needed to fix. And yeah, if you can find that underlying pain, and if you can genuinely solve it, and I don't mean faking it, and I don't mean trying to jam a square peg in a round hole, but if you genuinely can solve that and you stay true to that, you're being true to yourself and helping that customer. And so that's where we spend a lot of time. And the second part is being honest with yourself. If you don't solve that problem, stop wasting their time and yours. I'll give you a really useful metric. If anybody's listening to this, they're in sales, they're managing a sales team. Here's a good one. One of the companies that we work with, global brand in the e-commerce space, I'm not going to reveal who it is because they've got internal processes and everything. The only company that I know that's actually institutionalized this, but I love this one. We all talk about time to close. How long does it take us to close deals? I talked to this person, 30 days later, we close the deal. Great. Reps waste time selling to the wrong company, and they need to measure time to lose. How much time from your first conversation did you get them out of your pipeline? Did you stop trying to sell them? And if you try and keep that as tight as possible, you'll stop wasting time on the wrong deals and stop wasting your prospects' time. And so that's where we also spend a lot of energy. Get people out of your funnel because it's going to be a better use of your time and more respectful of them.
I really love that. So we have two main, but then 3 or 4 different ways to be able to get, for instance, students in our schools. Mm-hmm. And we take kids that are in like foster care and coming out of jail. I got another kid coming out of jail today. And we got a girl that was just grabbed from a sex traffic home. So like some really unique cases, right? Of I got random people literally calling me saying, hey, I got another kid for you. I got like all these different industries. But there's one group of people that have been like our solid. And then there's a secondary that I added on that are now starting to send us. So it's interesting how we have like all these little ones, but then we have 2 major groups, niches that are the key that we've figured out what really works for the 80-20 rule. 80% of the time is put into it, and 80% of the students or the customers are brought from it. How do you help companies understand what you just said? Because I find that like I understand the business side of it. I also understand them understanding that business side of it, and then the sales managers or owners making sure everybody understands that. That's the hard part, I think.
So this is one where I don't have a great answer, but it's the reason why I like the tech space so much. One of the reasons that I like it so much is, by and large, most founders, most sales leaders, most executives in the software space, the tech space, do get that. And the reason why is the business model. Most software companies out there right now are on subscription models. So you signing today doesn't actually give enough value. You still being a customer in 18, 24 months, that's where the value is. And the model inherently drives you that. So most of the sales executives I know, they want their reps to hit quota. But actually, they would much rather have somebody who only hits 80% of their quota, but the customers stay, than somebody who hits 100% of their quota and only 80% of them stay. That predictability of the customers that you're bringing on is so helpful to a tech company that at the executive level, there's just strong alignment on that. Now, in the grand scheme of things, I wish they were also better at training and onboarding sales reps. But if they were, I wouldn't have a company. So I guess I can't complain about everything.
So that's interesting. I know I'm with you. You're solving a problem. So you guys have a program, and this is really interesting. I'd love to know how the model works with you guys, that you can do this. You can do your 12-week program and it says 0 up front. Yeah. Like, how can you guys afford this?
So, I mean, it's a training program. So we charge tuition. People can pay up front, and it's a flat fee. It's like $5,000 up front, participate in the program. I mean, we usually do 4 equal payments, but it's the same thing. But the objective and the reason we founded this company was closing this chasm. We've got people who, like I said earlier, graduating from Ivy League schools, they're getting those introductions, they're getting their network, and they're growing and doing amazing things. And then there's others who haven't had that opportunity, getting left behind. We wanted to close that gap. So we have a pricing model where people can join, enroll, and not pay until they land that full-time job. And then we'll actually I know. We'll tie it actually to their compensation.
To
So
like
they're,
their bonus package or signing package?
well, not even the bonus, like just base salary. So like you earn a sales job, 50K base, 50K commission. You'll pay us a percentage of that 50K base. 24
Oh,
months, we'll finance it. Yeah.
oh my gosh. So I'm seeing this more and more.
Mm.
We'll have to talk about the high school world because I'd love to talk to you about that. I'm finding that programs like yours, you could take somebody that's 18 years old that has the drive and the willingness and passion and give them the framework of that, right? Like, I mean,
Mm.
that's how simple it can be, right?
Yep. That's exactly it. And we've had that. We've had people who said, I was thinking about going into university or college, but I don't want to wait to make that money, make that impact on my life, my family's life. And we've had people who've been on the tail end of their career. Like, I've been selling advertising at a newspaper for 30 years, and hey, that job's going away, so I need to look at a new option. And both bookends, they've got some real risk. They're at a point of transition. And wouldn't it be amazing if more of our colleges and universities aligned their pricing to your outcomes? So we're blazing that trail with our program.
But hold on. So I love this. And if you get a history degree, then you're going to go make like $10 an hour teaching history, right?
Yeah,
Like unless you have a master's or PhD. So the problem is the colleges they would go out of business teaching like specific subjects, which I love history personally. It definitely repeats. Where do you see, I'm with you, like growing up in Silicon Valley, I understand the sales world. And what's interesting is one of my friends is a big headhunter
Mhm.
in Northern California within the sales industry, which I should definitely hook you up with her. She's smashed it. Like this career
Nice.
is her niche. And she's telling me what they're signing salespeople at, like for tech space. And I'm like, hold on, what? Like I mean, you get stock options, you get
Mhm.
bonuses, you get signing bonuses if you're that good. I mean, there's a lot of stuff. If you're really good at selling tech or AI or anything in this, this space, you can really build not only a career, but you can retire at some points before 30 years old. What's your thought about this world, like where it's going?
Yeah. So, yeah, two things. Like, so number one, you're right. Those situations do exist. I also don't want to misrepresent the space. So those situations you described are definitely not the average outcome. So for those listening, it's like, yeah, that happens. And likewise, for engineering roles, if you're an AI developer, yeah, those situations happen. I know developers who are making $1 billion a year between their stock and their comp, and it's mind blowing. It's not the average. There are exceptions. However, even if we think about the average, there is such a market imbalance right now. It is such a compelling space. So
Mm.
I'll drop some numbers to help make it real. Over the next 10 years, SaaS, so even just the software as a service space of tech, let's ignore hardware and energy and chips and just software as a service, in the US is going to grow to 800 billion in revenue over the next 10 years. Okay. And this is on the most conservative projections. Like, it is such a fast growing space. Now, what that means is to close those deals, to close those sales, the industry is short 250,000 sales reps. And now,
Wow.
if we took, Silicon Valley stereotypes, hire people fresh out of school, hungry sales, athletes, whatever. If we took a look at every college program in the US and took every sales graduate and pumped them into that feed, those 250,000 hires, it would take them 80 years to fill the talent need. So over this next decade, this gap is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And tech companies are going to have to get smarter and smarter about the way they recruit. And so that's why programs like ours have been so fast to grow, because whereas some industries are shrinking and those roles are precious and you want to kind of protect and hold on to what you have, like on the tech side of things, it's just such a fast growing space. There are so many opportunities.
So it's kind of like what I've heard with nursing or different industries. Like right now, you want to go into law enforcement in America, it's not hard.
Mm.
Like because people don't want to do it. Like that industry
Yeah.
needs it. So it's interesting on people. A lot of time I find they don't look at the industry need. They think they want to go into something, they go to college, then they get out and then they do that job and they're like, I hate this
Yeah.
because it doesn't give the flexibility or the whatever those things are. How did you guys get obviously you got the idea, I'm guessing because this space is growing and nobody is providing what you're providing, or very little amount of people. I find that a lot of companies today, definitely in education, don't spend the time building the framework, the infrastructure, the human. It's more of like, here's a task, here's a goals, you should already know what you're doing, go. And we spend, I bring in speakers I'd say 3 times a year, plus we have 3 trainings that we do for a total of, 7, 8, 9 days, 10 days. Plus we have, we pour a lot into our staff. Like the first year we'll pour probably about $10,000 to $15,000 just to build the human.
That's amazing. That's great.
Which is, I've never heard of that in education, period. And that's internal costs. That's not if I like outsourced it, right? What's your thought on how you can help the industry, and or do companies come to you and say, we want to implement all of your training within our systems and processes?
Yeah, so that's such a good question, especially in the tech space. Can't comment on every other industry, but especially in the tech space, that idea of the corporate training, let's get you in to train our staff, is a reasonably mature space. Like it's a problem that they solve the same way again and again. And we saw this. So like our journey, if you look at my education, my work history, I'm a software tech CEO. Like I've done 4 software companies before this one. Growing our sales team was always a pain. My peers, us, others, we always see this. It's like, I want to grow my team. I'm going to bring in a trainer, train the whole organization. And kind of like you said, I'll do it a few times a year. A, because it's expensive to take your whole team out of the field. And B, the training is expensive. So it's hard to rationalize doing it all the time. So we don't do that. The way we actually found this company's idea, the way we did is we were selling software to sales teams. That's what our original company was. We were selling sales playbook software. Half of our sales were actually done by trainers. So like a sales trainer would go into a company, train the whole team, leave our software behind. It was great. But what we saw time and time again is customer buys $10,000 of software from us and $100,000 of training. And that's what told us, like, hey, there's a gap here, so let's uncover it. And the very first version of our program, we actually used our resellers, our trainers, aggregated some of that demand. Let's get 1 or 2 people from a couple of different companies. That took off like crazy. And then when we realized the companies we're talking to, the ones we're working with, would much rather actually just hire somebody who's already had that training, that's when the light bulb really went off. And we said, hey, you know what? That's actually something that we can do. We can bring this to the individual, not just the corporate side of things. And that was our evolution. And as a side effect, we have this huge network of tech companies who are hiring salespeople. So it makes it really easy to make sure our students have success too on the tail end.
Do you find when you can get like the VP, president, executives, board, like the top higher ups to understand the culture, they get a culture like what you're talking about, that bring that culture in with obviously companies like you that add value to that culture, with all the processes and systems? Do you find that it's harder? My question is, do you find it's harder to enroll the people at the top or enroll the actual sales teams to get on board?
That's a really good question. I guess the right way to answer it is it depends on the stage of the company. So the interesting thing, one of the things that we see is when a company is earlier on in its journey, panic is a real thing. Like your head of sales is like, you know what? I don't know how the hell I'm going to do this, but I got to get myself another $250,000 in pipeline. I need somebody who's going to pick up the phone and try and move these deals forward. And they're feeling that existential threat. As a company matures, they get a chance to think a little bit more strategically and think about, how do we build this pipeline of talent? And so your question about which is easier, I find varies differently